This is part two. My lighting went out, battery getting low, but I'm gonna finish up this last video dealing with Joan Molootsi, police misconduct, dealing with the wrongful convictions. As I was saying, we see in these police brutality cases, the Laquan McDaniel case, over a year before they can get it to the grand jury. We see around the country, it takes a lot of time to get government officials, rich people. It takes a lot of time to get their cases before grand juries. But as I stated before, and I'm stating here today, when you're black, from the poor inner cities, communities, Mexican, whatever, they have you indicted and arrested and all of this before the evening news come on. You know, so there's a reason for that. I'll show you a document here. It says. First, this is about the case that I'm on. It says, "Now, Sergeant, you have indicated that you went to Rita Lane, which, of course, was the Bat's house." "Yes, sir." "And did you find any physical evidence?" Let me get this page. This is page 533. "That Melvin Ray had been in that house on March 26, 1999. "No, sir. You did not find any fingerprints or any other kind of evidence." So what he's explaining is, I became a suspect in a case, even though there was no evidence in the case, linking me, incriminating me, whatever word you want to use, that would suggest that I was involved in this case in any kind of way. And so what they did was, the house that they saw on Rita Lane, they were able to collect wherever they got their facts from, to say that a crime occurred at that house. This was not my residence. I did not live there. I did not have any property there. As he said, I had not even been there. And so their evidence confirms this. But now I'm going to show you how I became a suspect when they went to that house and found evidence incriminating to another person that lived there. It says, "Mr. Batts, sometimes when interrogations are done, the interrogator does not tell you the identity of any other suspects. This interrogator is giving you a name and telling you Melvin Ray is a suspect, isn't he?" "Yes, sir." "And you were able to factor that into your thinking, aren't you?" "Yes, sir." "You were going to get more information from him, aren't you?" I asked a question. "You were trying to get some information from him." "Yes, sir." "And you wanted more information from him in part so you could decide what all you needed to say, didn't you?" Okay, and I don't have 412, but what it was going along the lines of, he was saying that he needed more information before he could know what to say, and that the investigator had given him my name, and so he was going to incorporate my name into whatever he said. It says, "If participate meant something that could get you in trouble, you were not going to say you did it." "Say what?" "And participate. You were not going to say you participated if that would get you in trouble." "No, sir." "All right. And the flip side of that, if you could find a way to say you participated without getting in trouble, you were going to take that route, weren't you?" "Yes, sir." "He is really pressing you for information on Melvin, isn't he? He is asking you about Melvin." "Yes, sir." So, for whatever reason, we know that it was not due to any type of evidence, because we already saw where the crime scene investigator said you did not find any physical evidence that Melvin Ray had been in that house on that day. "No, sir." So, why is he this? And this was on Sunday, March the 28th, when this interrogation was taking place. And this investigator is giving this guy my name. And this is the guy, Batts, that ended up turning state's evidence, became a state witness, committed perjury, lied about the caliber of weapon that was used in this crime, lied about having a deal in this crime, lied about this bulletproof vest that was involved in this crime, this police bulletproof vest. All of these lies have been exposed. And you see from the very beginning that I became a suspect or involved in this case, not because of any evidence, not because of any facts, not because of any witnesses. But for whatever reason that this interrogator was giving my name to this guy who he was interrogating, who the evidence had led him to his house and said that he had committed the crime at his house. And from that, I became a suspect. And so, what we're turning to now is a witness named Joan Molootsi who testified for the state. Um, and we're going to cover her testimony and some of the things she said. And there are some things very striking about her testimony. And the first thing that I can tell you is that one day after the interrogator gave my name to bats, they went and found this woman, Miss Molootsi. They plucked her basically out of the sky. And the crime involving Mr. Horton was allegedly to have occurred on March the 26th, 1999. And so we were asking her, says, now, you say that when you first saw them, you were suspicious. Yes. That would have been Friday afternoon. You agree with that? No. You don't think it was a Friday? What day do you think it was? I guess it was a Thursday. Okay. Next question. Okay. Miss Molootsi, as we sit here today, you are not exactly sure what day you saw the person that you think was Melvin Ray and this person, are you? But I know the date. What was the date? The 22nd. Okay, so you think that the date was the 22nd? Yes. Of what month? April. So this woman is saying that on April 22nd, on Thursday, April 22nd, she saw some people at this house doing what she assumed was committing a crime that involved Mr. Horton. This is their witness. She doesn't know the date that the crime occurred. She doesn't know the day that it occurred. She doesn't even know the month that it's occurred. But yet she's in this courtroom giving this testimony. And Miss Molootsi said that she was standing inside of her house looking out of her back window, and she saw two men moving something suspicious out of the house, and that she was alarmed and that she thought it was a body being transported out. This is what she told the investigators that Monday. And so when they asked her to ID the people that she saw, she identified myself, which y'all saw. The interrogator gave Bats my name, and that was it. So it says here, it says, and tell me something. How many seconds, how many minutes elapsed from the time you saw them, or you think you saw them carrying this item out of the house, to the time that you actually saw them putting it in the car? As if 5 minutes, 30 seconds, give me time, around 10 seconds. They put the body in the car and they left. 10 seconds. That's about as long as you had to get a look at it, isn't it? I understand it could have been a little less or more, but it was in the window. They went ahead and put it in the car and left. So she's saying that these events that she saw transpire 20 seconds. And she said within that small time period, she was able to make her identifications and whatnot. And, okay, here's another question. It says, give me an estimate based on where I am standing right now. As close as I am to you right now, were you as close to the house on Rita Lane as I am to you right now? She says, I can see from here to that door over there. And then he says, page 262. Okay, from what you are observed, was the house she was living in, was it unobstructed as far as the view of Perion's house? She said there were no obstructions. And she lived on 501 Lower Circle. And she's saying there were no obstructions in her view from what she was viewing that day. I'm going to pause this for just a second and have to come back, and we're going to pick back up, and I'm going to show you all how after trial, when we hired a private investigator to actually go to her house, because the state would not provide us this information before trial. When we hired an investigator and went to her house, we found out that this woman was giving false testimony. Okay, so back to the arrest warrant. As you can see, it was signed on March the 29th. And I guess this would be the day that they interviewed or whatnot Miss Molootsi. And she would tell you in her testimony that when she was presented with the interrogation, that they only showed her 6 photos. Okay, that'll be page 225, 226. Coming up right here. And a photo lineup is when they give you. So did the police show a lineup in this case? Is that yes? And a photo lineup is when they give you a series of pictures and you're asked to recognize. Yes. How many pictures did they show you? 6. 6 photos. All 6 were black males. Yes. And they ask you if you recognize any of them. All right. Here's the 6-man photo lineup, and that's one person. All these different people. Okay. And what you will notice is that the co-defendant is not in these photos. She was never asked to identify the person who lived directly across the street from her, who the police were saying were involved in this crime. She was never asked to identify him, never did. And so that was one of the issues that. And he said, and you told them that you recognized 2 of them. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Okay, well, she recognized 2 of them. Who is the other person that she's saying that she recognized? That's what we're trying to figure out. Who is the other person? Because it was not she just described him as the tall guy. So it's kind of suspect that she's doing an ID and she's not asked to identify the co-defendant, who the interrogator and the investigators are. This is their prime suspect. She's never asked to identify him, and she said she was only shown 6 photos, and she identified 2 of the people in the photos. And I have no idea who the second person was because she was never asked, and that never was brought out at trial. And so what happened is, this is what Molootsi said she was doing. She said that she lived on 5001 Lower Circle, and she said on the afternoon of March the 20th, they asked, what were you doing on the afternoon of March 26th? I was ready to go to work, and I woke up that day. Speak up. She said, so I went ahead and peeped through the window, which I usually do all the time, just peep through the window. And I saw these 2 men standing on the porch, just looking around, looking kind of suspicious. So I went and stood over there to see. Okay, now you remember, we had already asked her, how long were you standing there? About 10 seconds. And what page is this? Is 229 and 230. So she's saying she stood there for about 10 seconds. She saw 2 guys, and she stood there. It says, there it is. What is it, 5 minutes, 30 seconds? Around 10 seconds. They put the body in and they left. Page 229 of the transcript. And when you say the body, you mean the sheet that you think had a body in it. Yes, sir. 10 seconds. So that's about as long as you had to get to look at it, isn't it? And they went ahead and got in the car and they left. Did you see any other cars parked outside that day? No, sir. No other cars. So, the best of your recollection, as you testified today, there were no other automobiles parked outside the house at Rita Lane. Is that correct? Yes, sir. That's interesting because, according to the testimony of Fred Bass, there would have been 3 cars there. There would have been a blue Mustang, there would have been a blue Lexus, and there would have been this white car that she's describing in her testimony. But anyway, what I wanted to point out about Miss Molootsi's testimony is that after trial, my family and I, we hired a private investigator, Mr. Gary Fox. He's a retired ABI agent, over 25 years experience. And so he went to Molootsi's house. And in Molootsi's testimony, you're going to see she was asked, let me see if I can find it. She already said that there were no obstructions. And he asked her how close was the house. And she said, I can see from here to the door over there. And she said that her house was just right across the street. And so when we went and when Mr. Fox went and did the investigation, we found out that she stays on a totally different street. These are the pictures that he took from her house, and you saw where she was asked, were there any obstructions obstructing your view? She said there were no obstructions. Um, let me see if I can find that in her testimony right here while I got her right here. Did you hear any gunshots after that house? No, sir. No gunshots. She said. But anyway, I'll get back to that. Here's the photographs that Mr. Fox took. He said, hold on just a second. Right here. He said, give me an estimate based on where I am standing now, as close as I am to you right now. Were you as close to that house on Rita Lane as I am to you right now? I can see from here to that door over there, the door indicating. And when you say the door, you see the image of the gentleman standing, something right over there. Okay. And what he was trying to do was to get her to describe how close was she to the area that she was testifying to in the courtroom today. And if you're familiar with Judge Bruce Williams' courtroom in Madison County, Alabama, in 2001, that's whose courtroom we were in. And she said she could see to the door, the entrance doors to the courtroom. And so when I hired a private investigator, he went to her house, and this is what he had to say about her house. He said, on Sunday night, I just got